we'll jump right into that. We've got a bunch of organizers here. I think most of them are here too. We've got some new faces starting this year. New faces. Show me pictures. We gotta get pictures.
They'll have it. I don't know why it's not there.
Lol, we need pictures. They gotta know who we are.
As soon as they provide them, we'll get them up there.
All right, so we'll get pictures up there for all the organizers. And of course, we want to thank the sponsors, the Joplin Area Chamber of Commerce, Joplin Public Library, Missouri Technology Corporation, MoCan, Granny Schaefer's for the coffee over there, and SMB. I think that's the last slide. Oh, there we go. And I'm not going to waste any time talking about him because we're super excited. We all know what he's got going on. King Coleman, come on up here, man.
Everybody hear me? Yes, no? I'm loud, so does that help?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like to speak louder. I'm a hillbilly from Branson, Missouri. I'm proud of it. That's where I grew up and went to Reach Spring High School. And at 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be a real estate agent. That's kind of weird, I know. But I'm from a family of real estate people, so that was the reason why I knew that I wanted to be in that industry. Although I had two older brothers that had no interest in that. One of them's here today. That's my older brother, Tom. He's the smart one in the family. He has 5 degrees. I have 0 degrees. I have degrees in hard life. But I'm going to talk about one of those degrees today, and that's my experience with Million Cups. So I did 42 years in the real estate industry as the #1 realtor in Southwest Missouri. I sold and closed over 6,500 properties. And for an old dumb hillbilly, not too bad. But I learned how to communicate with people, especially women. That's who buys houses, by the way, 100%. So I teach that. That's a class that I teach, and I love it when guy realtors go, well, guys make some decisions. They make no decisions. Women determine whether or not a house is going to get bought or not. That's the fact. So anyway, that's the reason why I sold so much real estate. I figured that stuff out. It wasn't rocket science. I figured out that that was the case. So anyway, I did real estate for a long, long time, and I finally hit a burnout point. Raised 6 kids. All of them went to Missouri State University. All graduated. All married now. Many grandkids. But I had a burnout. And when I hit that burnout, I literally wanted to serve something greater than myself. I always thought I had, but I thought, I really like to serve a higher power. Even that I wanted to connect with God much stronger than I'd ever had. And so I went to my wife and I said, look, I don't want to do real estate anymore. And she looked at me and she said, you're serious? And I said, yeah, I don't want to do real estate anymore. I said, I'm going to quit. She said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. Serve God. She said something to me that just floored me, but we were both at a point in our lives. She said, well, if you're not going to do real estate, I don't want to be married to you anymore. Well, it took me back. I said, really? She goes, yeah. She said, she goes, I've got accustomed to that income. And I thought about that a long time, 2 weeks, and I came back to her and I said, look, I'm serious. This is what I'm going to do. So I handed her my keys. I handed her everything in my life, checkbook, everything, and said, I'm done. So I walked away from everything. Millions of dollars. But for me, life was not about money. Life was about connecting with people. I felt that's what God wanted me to do. So I thought, well, now what? So I got in my car and I drove south. And I finally stopped and I came back and I thought, I got to figure out a direction. I got to know where the heck I'm going, what I'm going to do. So I came back the next day and I had lunch with a guy by the name of Tim O'Reilly, who owns O'Reilly Automotive. He called me up on the way back. I'm from Arkansas. And he said, hey, what are you doing today? That's God. I said, well, I've got some time on my hands right now. And he said, well, let's meet for lunch. So we met for lunch. I forgot his wife knew my wife. So he knew what was going on. And he said, Ken, I'd love to hire you as a marketing director for O'Reilly Automotive. I said, look, I don't work for anybody. I said, I'm getting away from that. I don't want to do that. And he said, okay, I respect that. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to connect with people that are like me. And he said, you ever been to Million Cups? I said, never heard of it. He said, that's a deal that meets every Wednesday in Springfield. And he said, it's pretty cool. He said, I think you might like it. I said, sure. He said, it's tomorrow morning. So I said, sure, I'll go. And it was at the E Factory in downtown Springfield. So I went to it. And I sat there in the room. It was crowded. It was standing room only. And I thought, pretty cool. There's 2 presenters. They presented 2 ideas. Never will forget the ideas. And I thought, this is my group. I get these people. These people don't think inside of a box. Every one of them think they don't have a box. And I thought I'd really like to be around these people more. So guess what I did? I got in my car and I started driving. And I drove to the next Million Cups. And I went to that one. And I thought, I'm going to invent something. I got to get on stage and just talk about it. I got to figure out a way to connect with people. So I'd always wanted to invent this thing called a permanent billboard, mini billboard. So I found me an engineer out of Million Cups. And I said, hey, I got this idea. Can you help me invent it? And he said, sure. So we worked together and we invented it. And 2 weeks later, I'm on stage in Springfield presenting a sign called Gorilla Signs. And that was because of Million Cups. I changed my whole life just to invent this silly sign. And then I thought, well, I got to make a living. That's a reality. Never was worried about making money. Oh, I'll go sell these Gorilla Signs. That's what I'll do. I'll go sell the Gorilla Signs, and I'll go to Million Cups to do it. Made sense to me. So literally, with a car and a couple of outfits, I took off. And I went to 168 Million Cups. That's a bunch. This is my 169. And I said, this is my life. This is what I want to do. Guys, for 6 years, I lived out of my car. I joined Planet Fitness because guess what? You can take a shower at Planet Fitness for $10 a month, and you can exercise some, and they're everywhere. Now, this is a guy that went from living in a 6,000 square foot house to living in my car. Because for me, it was not about things. It was not about places. It was not about money. It was about connecting with people. So I love that you guys are here right now, that you're willing to listen to an old hillbilly talk. So as I traveled around the country, I got to experience, as you could guess, many Million Cups. I went to San Diego. I went to Daytona Beach. I went to Chicago. I went to Seattle. Whoever would listen to me. I would go and book, listen to Gorilla Signs. And they would come back, yeah, sure, you can come talk. So there I was, I got to some of the craziest little towns you ever seen. But what I did see was the experience of people just like you. Lots of them. I was speaking one time at a group in San Diego, and the guy walked up to me, 82 years old, and it was about this book right here. And this was 2 years into it. And the book had not been written yet. I was just talking about the concept of the book. And that I was working on it. I was looking for people to help me to write this book. And so Million Cups was this is a product of Million Cups. And so he come up to me and he stood there after the deal, and he's 82 years old, and I said, tell me about your story. And he said, Ken, he goes, what you said resonated with me so much because I was this kid in Germany at 14 years old, and I told my father that I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be a person who is going to invent things. And I'm scared to, because here in Germany, they haul you off to some funny place where you never see your family again because you're highly intellectual or that you're an inventor. And he said, I don't want to do that. And his dad said, well, then you probably want to keep it quiet because that's what they'll do. And I thought, well, that's a pretty crazy story. There's a line of people standing there to talk to me. And I said, well, tell me, speed this story up. He goes, well, I threw a scaffolding hook over the wall, climbed the Berlin Wall, shooting at me. I fell to the other side, sprained my ankle, got on a boat. The boat ended up in New York, and I couldn't read the word exit because I spoke in German and didn't understand English at all. And I said, so where are you at today? He said, I just retired the head of NASA. I can tell you guys, I heard so many of those stories. It's just amazing. Some of them are in this book. Some are in another book coming out called Focus on the True Five. A five, by their nature, is 5% of the population. 5% of the population that are overachievers, they're doers, they're people that say, I don't quit, I don't give up, doesn't matter what. Even if I make mistakes, doesn't matter. They're just hurdles because I'm focused on the finish line. And they just don't quit. It's one thing to be called an entrepreneur. It's another thing to be an entrepreneur that actually follows through and does what you say you're going to do. Real science. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, about my 5th year of traveling. And 3 Marines walk up to me at a Million Cups, and they said, we own the largest security company in the United States. And I said, well, that's cool. And they said, well, we just think you're really, inspiration and you're an inventor kind of guy. We have a problem. And I said, okay, what's the problem? I always carried a notepad around with me so I'd write down. So I sat down at the table and we wrote down the problem. The problem was they were lacking security in the parking industry. They couldn't control parking at great, big, huge events. Booting was too encompassing to do, and towing was not realistic. You know how people park in the grass at a sporting event? They're not supposed to? Well, they couldn't control that because there was too many people parking in the grass. There was no way to control it. And I said, sounds like a real problem. I said, what do you want me to do? I said, okay, why don't you figure out how to solve the problem? And I thought, well, okay. I said, what if I do? And then he said, well, he goes, we'd use your product. And I said, what do you want, part of the company? Or? No, we just want you to solve the problem. So I got back in my car and I headed to Nashville. And on my way to Nashville, hit me. I know how to solve this problem. So I called him back and I said, hey, I know how to fix this problem. And he goes, I think that might work, Ken. He said, wow, how fast did you come up with that? I said, just kind of reverse engineered it in my brain, thinking, here's the problem. What logically solves the problem? So I invented it, and it's called the tire tag. And it's being ran by a person who I met at Million Cups in Dallas, Texas, Fort Worth. I don't have to do anything. Right now on my phone, there's a little meter going ting, ting every time somebody puts it on a car. And all it simply is a bicycle tag that goes on your wheel. So when you come out your car and you see this bicycle tag on your wheel, you don't want it on your car. So you go to your phone and you pay your bill, and you get the code, and you drop it off in a little box that you drop off the lot. And there's nobody who has to have any confrontation. It's a simple solution. But Million Cups inspired that. Million Cups created it. Made me a lot of money. It's making me a lot of money as I stand here right now. But it's really never been about the money. It's about the connection. It's about helping. Guerrilla Signs, we put people to work that were wounded warriors. They were welders. The Army taught them how to weld, but they couldn't get a job because they were wounded. So in Springfield, we put them to work. They could only stay on their feet 20 hours, but during that 20 hours, they made money. And we hired them as self-employed. So Million Cups did a lot of things for me over the years, and the experiences for me traveling across the country was that what you guys are doing here in Joplin is a big thing. In my opinion, it's probably the most important meeting that's held in Joplin or Branson or Springfield every day. And the reason I say that is entrepreneurship is what made this country great.
You're here.
Right? Many, many years ago, there was 55 men. Truth is, there was women in the room because they were all married. 55 men got together because Jefferson said, you know what, let's organize these guys because we want to make this country a great country. And we want to make sure to ensure that it's always going to be a great country that entrepreneurs want to come to. And I'm getting ready to tell you the secret to why this country is what it is today, in my opinion. So those 55 men all got together and they wrote up a paper, a document, trying to describe a safe place for fives to land, entrepreneurs. And they wrote that paper, and before they signed the paper, 38 of them were pastors. Back in that day, the people in the room that you are, a big chunk of you would have been pastors because that was the popular thing to do. That's who led the community. That's who was the wisest people in the community. They were wiser than the politicians, which is hard to do today, but that's the reality. So they decided to go home and pray on it before they signed it. They came in, they signed the Constitution of the United States the next day. Be assured that all 55 of them were fives. All 55 of them were business owners. All 55 of them had one thing in common. All fives believe in faith. Interesting. When you go to enough Million Cups, you start seeing that pattern. It was pretty cool when I discovered it. I thought, wow. So I started testing it. I started asking people, so what's your belief system? Well, I believe there's a power greater than myself. That's called faith. So it's really not necessarily believing in God, although I do. I met people who believed in Buddha. But the thing is, because they believe in a power greater than themselves, they also believe they have a safety net. It's called faith. It's hard to be an entrepreneur if you're not willing to take what?
Risk.
And so it's hard to take risk if you don't believe that there's a chance that you're going to survive. Right? Yep. All great things come from trial and error. All great things do. I met a football player one time in a million cups. This great big huge guy, African American, just great guy, jovial. He had like 8 restaurants in town. He shook hands with me. I felt like I was shaking hands with bananas. He was this huge guy. And we sat down and I said, "So you're a 5?" He goes, "What's a 5?" I said, "You." He goes, "How do you know I'm a 5?" I said, "Let me get this straight. You played pro football and you own 8 restaurants in town." He goes, "Right." I said, "Then you're a 5. You didn't get there without being a 5." I said, "Show me a football player that got knocked down, got back up, got knocked down, got back up in the same play. I'll show you a 5 every time." Because the rest of the world, 95% gets knocked down. They're going to go, "That hurt. I don't want to experience that again." And that's okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Maybe they're smarter than a 5. But a 5 has no option. 5s have no choice. It's in their DNA. They have to be who they were born to be. Does that make sense? Anybody in the room relate to that? Yeah. 5s just held up their hand. And 5s are only about 5% of the population, even in a million cups. But that doesn't mean that all things invented are invented by 5s. All things first purchased, new ideas are all first purchased by 5s. Isn't it interesting? 5s being 5% of the population, that group I just described. I also have another deal that I have a book which is called Climb to the Top. I'll be doing it here in Joplin. I'll be doing both these classes here in Joplin soon. You can go on to this site right here and it'll tell you when I'm going to be doing it. I only tell you that because connecting with people is something I love to do. And I love to teach what I've learned over the years, especially going to all the million cups. And the stories are endless. I can tell you one more story, maybe 2 or 3 more. But one more. I was in Ames, Iowa, and I got in there late, and it was snowy like this. And I was going to speak at Million Cups the next day. And they had these bicycles you could rent. And so I rented one of the bicycles. This was my journey. And I got on the bicycle and I started riding around downtown at night. It's snowing. And it was beautiful. It was breathtaking. It was an experience that I would have never experienced back in my Branson home doing real estate. Because I had a free spirit. I knew I was going to get to talk to people I wanted to talk to the next day. And they have these bridges in Des Moines and Ames that you can go back and forth across the river and ride your bike. You can crisscross back and forth across. It's beautiful. One of the prettiest towns in the Midwest, by the way, if you've never been there. It's a pretty cool place to go visit, you would think. But I had so many of those experiences that I can't even tell you. One of the greatest experiences I found at Million Cups was at Columbia, Missouri. I went to Columbia, Missouri. I pitched guerrilla signs, and after I got done, 6 people approached me immediately. One was the mayor, one was the head of the college. They all had their place, and they all 6 of them came to me and said, "Would you build your signs here in Columbia?" So it was pretty cool, and I was impressed. And then we went to lunch, and I thought, boy, talk about a Million Cups that's got their act together. It's utilizing Million Cups for what it's really meant to be. So I went to the Coleman organization one day, and I thought, hey, it'd be really cool if we took Million Cups to the next level. The Coleman organization said, "Great idea, but that's not what we do. We do exactly what we're supposed to do, is create awareness of entrepreneurs within the community. That's really what we set out to do." And I said, "So you're a networking event?" No, we don't think of ourselves as a networking event because we're not like any other networking event in town. We don't even use the word networking. Our motivation is to get people to come and listen about future developments, future things happening in town. Of course, networking happens because anytime people gather, so it's really a social event. We drink coffee, which is pretty cool. So as much as I'm hungry to hit every one of you's backgrounds, what you do, what you are planning to do, it's probably not realistic, probably not going to happen, but I want to. So as many of you as you can after this is over with, I've got the time. I'm going to sit here. I want to meet you and say hi. Let's do questions. Be a good time. Because I'm going to talk a lot more about questions tonight. Is that good?
Questions?
How many of you have ever presented? That's good.
I'm Doug Hunt, Director of Entrepreneurship with the Joplin Chamber. First of all, thank you for your inspiring message. It's amazing. And the common denominator with entrepreneurs is that ability to take that risk and faith and jump off the cliff and build a parachute on the way down. So the fact that you were already successful and stepped out of that is truly amazing. So thank you for that.
You
I'm
bet.
sure that resonated with some folks.
Well, thank you for saying that.
My question is, when you are speaking to people, do you feel like you can get a sense when you're looking at the audience that one or two people connect with what you're saying? And do you feel like you've seen people have that moment and maybe they've gone on and you've inspired them to have faith? And if so, do you have a story?
Yeah, I mean, one of them was that guy that was 82 years old. I mean, tears were rolling down his face out there in the audience, and I was just talking about similar things. I didn't go in depth to what Focus on the Five is about. That would be another time. But I wanted to come more and talk about baby cups in general. Yeah, many times. In fact, you can tell. Let me tell you how you know when a five's hearing you. Eye contact. No mistake about it. They're doing their phone. They're looking off somewhere else. They're typically not a five. They're just not. And that's not bad or good. It's just what it is. Anytime you speak to a crowd, there's only about 5% that are really resonating with what you're talking about and getting really something deep from it. Otherwise, it's just surface, because 95%ers typically don't really get what I'm talking about. And they should. I'll give an example. My son, right after he read the book, Focus on the Five, he's the head of marketing for a little company called Dell Computers. Graduated Missouri State University, real proud of him. He's 39 years old, and he's quickly promoted to the industry. He calls me one day and he says, "Dad, you have two grandsons down here in Austin, Texas." And I said, "Yeah, 5 and 6 year old, Garrett and Oscar being the oldest." And he said, "We got this brand new couch and Mom was away from the house. I'm on the phone at the house and they're jumping over the couch, this brand new couch." So they know the rules not to jump over the couch, but they're both doing it because I'm on the phone and Mom's away from the house. So I got off the phone, I called them both over in front of me and I said, "Oscar, Garrett, what's the rules of the house?" And Oscar, being the older one, he says, "Well, Dad, the rules are we're not supposed to jump on furniture." He goes, "Well, what were you doing?" "Well, we were jumping over furniture." He said, "So we're not going to do that, right?" He said, "The rules is you guys cannot jump over furniture." Oscar said, "Okay." Phone rang again. Patrick got back on the phone. Oscar sits down, starts reading a book. Garrett starts jumping over the couch. He's beside himself. He's thinking, "You got to be kidding me. What's this kid thinking? I mean, I'm going to have to put this kid on drugs or something. He's got a problem." So he gets off the phone and calls both boys back over in front of him. He says, "Oscar, what did you hear me say a few minutes ago?" He said, "Dad, you said we're not supposed to jump over the couch." Oscar knew. He knew what was going down. He said, "Very good, Oscar. Go ahead and read your book." He looks at Garrett. Garrett's looking at his shoes. He won't even look at that. He says, "Garrett, what did you hear me say?" Garrett didn't respond. He just keeps looking at his shoes. He said, "Garrett, you won't get in trouble. Just tell me what you heard me say." Patrick goes, "I'm thinking about the book I just read." Now, Patrick is not a 5 in the progressive sense. So Garrett finally looks at him and finally looks him right in the eyes. He said, "Well, Dad, you said I can't jump over the couch, but I can, see?" That's the difference between a 5 and a non-5.
Yeah.
At the core of kids. And so, that's important for people to understand. And I want to be an advocate for teaching people that, because I think that most of America would put that one child on some kind of a drug, a Prozac or something. And it's sad, because that is your next president. Let's hope. Or your next person who solved cancer, or the person who figures out how to go to Mars, or whatever. I guarantee Elon Musk was one of those guys. In fact, if you read his stories, people say, "Well, how do I find out about 5s?" Go to any library, check out a book. They don't write about non-5s. They don't. Go to any movie, see a movie. It's about 5s. They don't write movies about non-5s. Kind of boring. You go to sleep during the movie. Because 5s are those overachievers. They're those ones that go after the impossible. Not everybody, God in his wisdom didn't make everybody a 5, because this would be a crazy world if everybody was a 5. It would be off the charts, But the reality is that there is about 5% of the population. It has nothing to do with race, color, creed, national origin. It's very diverse. I had a young woman from China, and she heads up Focus on the Five in Austin, Texas. She's 26 years old, and at 8 years old, she was riding on the back of a bicycle with her mother in China between two mountains. And when she told me this story, it was so much a 5, I just couldn't believe it. She said, "I'm pedaling and I'm seeing the moon at night." She says, "You travel when the moon's full moon to another town, because all we could see, no street signs, or no street lights." we were going to go see Grandma. And she said, so I asked my mom, I'm holding on to her, and I said, Mom, what's on the other side of that mountain where we can see the moon? And Mom said, well, there's probably people over there. And she goes, well, what kind of people? Mom said, I don't know, people like us. She goes, haven't you ever been there, Mom? No. She goes, probably never will, and you probably won't either. And she kept pulling on her mom. She thought about that all the way to Grandma's house. When she got to Grandma's house, she asked Grandma the same set of questions. You know what Grandma told her? Honey, you're going to someday serve men, and you're going to serve your community, and you're going to be the female you were born to be. And she said, Ken, I had a real problem with that. It just didn't resonate with me. I couldn't understand that philosophy. She said, so I started saving my money, and I didn't know why, but she said, I saved every penny I could get my hands on, put it in a piggy bank. And when I turned 18 years old, I bought a ticket, and I went to the United States. Because I had heard the United States was a place that I could be the person I was born to be. She is also one of the heads of marketing for Dell Computers today. And she quit Dell Computers, just quit a perfectly good job. And guess what she does now? She heads up Million Cups in Austin, Texas. And she also helps entrepreneurs grow because that's her real passion. For her, it's like a religion. For this is like a religion for me. Talking to you guys, you are the people in the church. And that's just how I look at it. I think that people like you make the difference in this town. And so coming here, supporting Million Cups, asking more people to come is so big for your community, I can't even tell you. You need to have standing room only. It's a great place to meet at. You've got, I mean, what a setup. But I'm just telling you that if you want to grow your business, you want to grow who you are, you want to build this town, invite people to this event. Because speakers like me and better will come and want to speak here. So, any other questions?
Hello, thank you. In your presentation, you mentioned you went to 1 Million Cups Coffee Foundation and said, let's take it to the next level. What does taking it to the next level mean?
So what I wanted to do is do kind of a Shark Tank kind of thing. I basically wanted to have the best presenters, the best ideas from around the country be able to go and compete on a national level. Seemed like a good idea to me. After going to so many of them, I saw some great ideas. I could stand here all day and tell you about all the cool ideas that I saw. I mean, I saw a backpack one time presented in Kansas City. It was just the coolest backpack you ever seen. I mean, it did everything. It was the Swiss Army knife of backpacks. And this kid, 16 years old, had invented it. He actually sewed the bag himself with his own hands. And you talk about cool. And I thought, what a neat invention. I mean, it did. I'm telling you, I stand up all day and tell you all the things it did. He's kept pulling things out of it. I thought, oh, that's so cool. And you bought it like it was, but you could do anything with that backpack. So I thought, you know, that's happening all over the United States, and it needs to be encouraged. We need to encourage Million Cups to do more of that. See, Coffin Organization wanted to encourage the entrepreneurship of every community to come forward and speak to the community so the community could help them grow. It's just that simple. It's not more complicated than that. Isn't it such a cool idea, though? It's a great concept. That's what you guys are to do. That by being here, by your physically being here, you're encouraging that. I show up at Million Cups in Springfield every day. Guess who works for the Million Cups in Springfield? As of next week. Because I thought I might as well put my money where my mouth is. Actions speak louder than words. Right. So volunteering for the Million Cups is a big thing. As like volunteering for your church. I mean, it's for me, it's more important than religion. To me, and I'm not saying religion is not important, but I'm saying that the growth of the community is so vital. That's how churches survive, is because of people like you. So, I don't know if I answered your question or not. Any other questions?
So when I first met you was in Springfield and you were talking about gorilla sign. So you take a minute and just kind of tell people what a gorilla sign is, but also what was fascinating to me is how you marketed it and you had a mascot. So,
yeah, that's a whole story with itself. You know, I told you I have another brother. He's a marketing major at Wichita State University. He's also a graduate of Wichita State University. We chose Gorilla Signs because everyone ever heard of guerrilla marketing.
Yeah.
So we chose Gorilla Signs because we thought it's a guerrilla marketing product. And what it was is a sign that was about yay wide, about so deep, and about this tall. It was made out of steel. And what was cool about this sign, it was a built-in pulse hole driver. So I could walk up to any piece of real estate, I could take it, drive a steel stake into the ground with no tools needed, unpin the arms, put it up, and put a banner on it, canvas banner on it, so that when the wind hit it, it actually would flex in the wind. And it stood 8 foot tall. So I was able to put up a mini billboard in a matter of seconds. A small female could put this sign up. Now, why was that important? Well, because if you're branding or marketing your company or your location or your open house or whatever that may be, I was motivated because of open houses. I wanted to have a sign that was bigger than this that I could put up in a matter of seconds to market and brand who I was and where I was. And so we even took it farther. Now we actually have GPS devices on it. When you drive by the sign, it sends a message to your phone automatically. Pretty cool. So it basically sends you my website as you drive by it. So we had a mascot that my middle brother, my birthday, brings me this box. I open it up and it's a gorilla outfit. And I said, well, what's this for? He said, yeah, gorilla signs. You can market with the gorilla. So as I went to these Billion Cups events, and this is the part that I hadn't told you guys, I sold the signs so that I could give the money back to charity. I kept just enough to live on. And I did 69 major charities across the United States at those Million Cup events that I would go to in the same communities. I would in advance call them and say, hey, would you like to have a gorilla come and promote your event? We'll put some signs up and we'll really promote your event prior to and around town. And well, how much was it cost us, Ken? Nothing. I'll pay for it. And that's what I did. So that really, really fulfilled me. And guess who the mascot was? I have a son-in-law who also did some here in Missouri, but he couldn't travel around the country because he had to pay for, raising 3 kids. But it was a cool experience, and I got to tell you, I could write a whole book on what it is to be a mascot at events. I was in San Antonio, Texas, at the zoo fundraiser for San Antonio. And I showed up in the grill outfit, and they knew I was coming, and the zoo had bought our signs. And then I turned around and donated the money I made from it back in banners for that event, which they thought was nuts. They said, well, how do you make a living? And I said, I make enough. And so here's this gorilla going around, and pretty soon, Governor of Texas walks up to me. Says, can I get my picture taken with you? Think about that a minute. Just pause for a second and think about that. How many of you in the room could show up to an event and have the governor of the state go, can I take my picture with you? Pretty cool, wasn't it? Yeah. That marketing brother was pretty smart. And so I did that all over the United States. I went around and I was in this grill outfit. I could tell you story after story after story of, I was in San Antonio, Texas, 38,000 kids with autism event. It's the largest event in the United States for autism. Let me tell you how popular a gorilla is. Autism. I have hundreds of pictures of hundreds of kids gathered around this gorilla. They even at one point lifted me up in the air. And I didn't have a choice on it. They decided they were going to pick me up and carry me. And I think I appeared 38 times on the front page of the newspaper in the local community. I was one of the people on stage when they presented the check for the fundraiser. There I was in my grill outfit. The cool thing was, when you're in a grill outfit, you get to hear things. They think he's just some dude, in a grill outfit. They didn't realize it was Ken Coleman in that grill outfit that really cared to hear what they had to say. So I gathered tons and tons and tons of information that went into this book to understand what this book was about. I interviewed 12 billionaires, most of them from Southwest Missouri, Johnny Morris, Tim O'Reilly, some others, a Plaster family, who I work for now on the side. I part-time did many millions of dollars with real estate sales last year with the Plaster family. I don't do real estate full-time anymore. He does, but I don't. So I interviewed these 12 billionaires, and I asked them 4 basic questions. The first question I asked them was, you got all the money in the world, so what's the most important thing to you in your life? I thought it was a pretty smart question. With my notepad, my pen, I was ready to write it down. And the answer was, all 12 of them, including Les Garland, who started MTV and VH1, who I sold a house to on Table Rock Lake, all 12 of them answered the question exactly the same. The answer was, my faith. All 12 of them said, my faith is the most important thing to me in my life. Now, they were Midwest billionaires, but still, I thought that was pretty amazing. I thought they'd say family. They didn't. One of them started to, and he changed it, because now it's my faith. And it was Mike who started We Buy Ugly Houses out of Kansas City. He said, Ken, he goes, the thing is, if my family all died in a car wreck tomorrow, all I would have left is my faith. He said, so it's the most important thing to me. So I said, okay, that's pretty cool. Good information to know. Because see, if I'm in business and I want to understand people who think positive and want to grow, I need to know how they think, what makes them tick, right? So the second question I asked him was, what's the second most important thing to you in your life? Family. Family was the second most. All 12 of them said the same answer. Family and friends. That makes sense. Now, the third one was the same question. There was Les Garland said, let me guess, you're going to ask him what the third most important thing to me. And I said, yes. He said, well, let me think about that. And it was Johnny Morris that was looking over my shoulder at top of the rock like he wasn't even hearing what I was saying. I thought, oh boy, I lost him. Then all of a sudden his eyes locked back on me and he goes, no question, time. Time's the most important thing. He says, I can't buy any more of it. Can't make any more of it. I don't know when it's going to end. So time is definitely the most valuable thing beyond faith, family. Now that's important, guys. When you're talking again to someone who's going to be highly successful or is highly successful, or you're wanting to win them over. I teach a class on how to do referrals in Southwest Missouri, how to get the most important people in the community to be your buddy. Like that. Pretty cool to know. So the fourth question I asked was, very good. So I thought on this one I'm going to definitely hear different answers. All 12 answers the answer the same exact. And this one I wasn't sure what they were going to say. And the answer was, Johnny Morris said, Ken, he goes, if I'm on my last breath, and I'm lucky enough to have a thought on my last breath, he said, I'm going to be thinking about my faith. Be assured. I'll be laying there in bed, hopefully, and he said, thinking about my faith. He said, second, I'll be thinking about my family and my friends. Third, we'll be very conscious of time, because it's about over. Right? He said, fourth, is the question you just asked me. He said, it's the most important question of all. He said, I have airplanes, I have jets, I have everything I could possibly ever want. That won't even enter my mind on that last breath of air. He said, what will enter my mind is the relationships I made along the way. And he said, I'll think about those. I'll think about the people I met. So I remind you guys, be conscious of that every second, every minute of the day. The person sitting next to you on your left, the person sitting next to you on your right have a life. They have things going on in their life, especially in this group. And you connecting with them, just know this, whatever business you're in, forget it. You're in the people business. It just happens to be the way you make a living. So those four guys reminded me, so I snuck a fifth question, which will make this all seem to make sense. I said, can I ask you guys where you met those people at? The ones that helped build your business. I looked at Johnny Morris and I said, you must have met some pretty amazing people that were, relationships. He said, yeah. He said, I was at an event that a lady who never had a job in her life, and she made two of her family members president. She had an event, and she had many of them in Texas. Her name was Barbara Bush. He said, smartest lady in the family, smartest person in the family, he said. He said, the reason she was so smart is because she spent her time having non-for-profit events. He said, guess who goes to non-for-profit events, Ken? People who are successful. People who have their heart in the right place. And he said, so you want to meet these kind of people? Go to non-for-profit events. Guess what area of the country has the most non-for-profit events in it per capita anywhere in the United States? Take a guess. You're sitting there right now. Southwest Missouri. We have more non-for-profit events per capita and more non-for-profit organizations than anywhere else in the United States. So your chances of getting involved and being involved with fives and meeting fives is huge. So by the way, all 12 of them said the same answer. All 12 of them said, my wife sits on the board of directors. Ever heard of Fisk Limousines? Fisk Limousines belongs to 42 non-for-profit organizations. His wife sits on the board of 32 of them. You know why she sits on the board? Because they give tons of money to these organizations, and she wants to control that money. She wants to make sure it's going where it's supposed to go. Who's the smarter one in the family? Her. Because guess where he meets all of his contacts? At those non-for-profit events that she holds. right? Do you know what the largest organization is in the United States today? Largest industry. Some would say medical, some would say computers, but it's not either one of those. It's not for profits. It's the largest industry in the United States today. And the reason is because rich people can give money to it and take tax break, and they can control where it goes. So. I'm done. Stick me with a pen. I'm done. Anybody got any other questions? So, yeah.
I'd like to know more about that time when you said, I'm done with everything, I'm going to live in my car. What was the duration of this is happening to I have to start something? Because I think many of us in entrepreneurship, you have that pit period, and sometimes the pit is a day, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's years. How long was that duration, and what was happening with you mentally?
You're opening up Pandora's box now. So 2 years into it, 2 years into it, I was coming back from Texas, Houston. I was doing a Million Cups event, and I was coming into Arkansas, and I was getting ready to cross the Red River, and I hit that point in my life where I said, God, there's got to be something more. It's great going to these Million Cup deals. It's great doing the girl outfit. It's great doing the charities, but there's got to be something. I mean, I was the #1 realtor, so there has to be something else you had planned for me. And I thought, this is time for me to, people say they talk to God. I'm thinking, I've never talked to God, but I sure would like to. And this was a moment that I thought, I'm at a low point in my life because I lacked purpose, I lacked passion, I lacked direction on the level that I felt I was supposed to do. Anybody relate to that?
Yeah.
So I got out of my car, parked on the side of the road, I walked along the riverbank, and I laid down in some grass along the river. And it was in January 29th. Never will forget it. And I laid there and I said, God, eyes closed, I said, I'd love to talk to you. What is my purpose? What is my direction? What do you want me to do? And I laid there for 30 minutes thinking, I'm not going to hear anything. And then all of a sudden, very visually, because I'm a visual person, God started communicating with me. And with tears rolling down my face, for 6 straight hours, I sat there with God talking to me. This changed my life. So your question was a really good question. I don't normally go there. But actually, very, very rarely ever spoken about this in public. So I said, well, God, what is my purpose? And God said, well, purpose comes from passion, Ken. And you find your passion from knowing what your God-given talents are. And I thought, interesting. I doubt very many people really know what their God-given talents are. If I were to ask most of you in the room right now, I bet there's not but 2 of you that can actually tell me what your 2 God-given talents are. And you only have 2. Everything else is a derivative of those 2. One's based off of love, and one's based off of giving to others. So I thought, what are my 2? I thought about it for quite a while, and finally I come up with a couple. I said, is it this one, God? No. Is it that one? No. Is it that one? Yep, that's it. Okay, what's the other one? I literally went through that process. And finally, I thought, these are my 2 God-given talents. This is pretty exciting. I was like, I wanted to jump up and tell everybody about it. And God said, well, that's the idea, Ken. That's really kind of what I want you to do. And I said, okay. I said, well, I'm excited. I'm ready to go make this happen. He said, no, I'm not done with you. I'm still going to do some talking here. He said, Ken, he goes, I put a person on the face of the earth many years ago. And he said, when I did, they were born with this thing in the pit of their stomach. They knew they were supposed to be a part of something much bigger than themselves. And this person went around and started telling people, hey, I got this plan, I got this idea, I got this belief system. And other people looked at him and said, if you go around telling people that, they'll kill you for that. Yeah. And he said, I don't care. I got to do this. This is me, man. This is what I'm supposed to do. It's what I got to do with my life. And he said, some person said to him, it's going to be a lonely life, man. So you know what he did? He went and found me 12 other guys. One was a fisherman, one was a carpenter. They were all different walks of life. And he said, you know what? I know that you have that same thing in the pit of your stomach. And listen to what I've got to say. And they said, man, I'm in. Let's make this happen. So they all 12 became a follower of him. These weren't just 12 normal guys. These were 12 fives. Because who walks away from their job and just says, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to follow that feeling in the pit of my stomach? Well, these people did. You would not know who they are today if it wasn't for another group of fives that you never even know the names of that wrote a book about that group. True? See, I believe that's the blueprint of how entrepreneurs are supposed to live their life. See, if you don't write your story of the trial and errors and the things that you've done over the years, if If you don't write that down, the next generation doesn't get a chance to learn from it. So that's the greatest gift that we're given. It's called wisdom. I'm 65 years old. Guess what I'm doing now? I'm writing books. I'm dyslexic, guys. I can't read a book worth a darn. God said, I told God that. I said, God, I'm dyslexic. You know that. I said, how come I'm going to go write books? He said, well, you go find other people that can help you. They actually came to me. I said, well, God, how do I meet these fives? He said, oh, they'll come to you. He said, they're already coming to you. And I said, well, why are they going to come to me? He says, because you're going to inspire them to be the five they were born to be. He said, they're my chosen people. I said, whoa, wait a minute, time out, God. I can't tell them that they're chosen people. He said, but they are. He said, they are. And they'll know that when you talk to them. He said, I put that thing in the pit of their stomach from the time they were born. It's called faith. He said, not everybody has it. A lot of them have to be taught it. A lot of them have to see it by example. He said, but this group, this chosen group, he said, it's the same in animals. Everybody ever gone by a pasture and seen all the cattle go in one direction? There's always a lead cow. Have some fun sometime. Go by that same group of cattle 3 or 4 times and see who the lead cow is every time. Same cow. You know why? Because they're the five of the herd. It's their job. It's their responsibility to be a leader. And the greatest way to be a leader is not in the words you say, it's the actions that you take. It's the greatest way to lead. But God shared with me unbelievable information that day, guys. Whether you believe that or not, in the fiber of who I am, everything I can do to keep from breaking down crying right now, I was visited that day. And I got up from there and I began a path. A little boy from Southwest Missouri, hillbilly, that said, you know what, I'm going to go speak to people, whatever I got to do, and tell them that they need to be the five they were born to be. We have a Facebook group. It's called Focus on the Five. I'd love for you guys to join it and follow us. Here it's all we are is just a group of fives that, guess what, network. I got guys on there and people on there and women on there that's doing business. They said, wow, amazing, the people I'm connecting with all over the country. So that's the purpose of that. See, what God shared with me that day, what God wants is for his five to get together, just like they did when they wrote the Constitution of the United States. Can you imagine a community when fives get together, what can happen? That's the reason this organization is so important, that you encourage more people to come. Guys, I could talk all day long.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I'd love to get with you afterwards. Hang down there, come by and say hi. I don't have very many of these books. I just had a big event in Springfield, and I went through 150 books. I have about 6 books left, but if you'd like to buy a book, you can. Or you can go online, Amazon. And I'll sign it for you if you want. But anyway, thanks, guys. Thanks for being here.